Hello, my friends, and welcome to this new practical activity for decision tree classification. And now, please follow me into part 3, classification, to implement, this time, the decision tree classification model. And as usual, we're going to start with Python. This Python folder contains 2 files, the implementation of the decision tree classification model in IPYNB format, and the same dataset, social network ads.csv, which contains information of 400 customers of a car dealership, which just released a brand new luxury SUV, and the strategic team gathered this data to understand which customers buy the most the SUV in order to target them with ads that will be posted on social networks. So each of these rows correspond to different customers, and for each of these customers we have 2 features, the age and the estimated salary, with which we're going to predict the dependent variable purchased, which takes binary values, 0 meaning that the customer didn't buy the SUV, and 1 meaning that the customer bought the SUV. All right, let's do this. Let's see if decision tree classification can beat the previous accuracies we got so far, meaning 93%. So without further ado, let's open that with Google Colab, choose your favorite, and I'm gonna put it here because this is our next classification model. All right, perfect. So once again, this implementation results from that classification template we made in the first section of this part 3 when we implemented the logistic regression model. And therefore, the only cell that changes here in this implementation is, as usual, that cell where we build and train the classification model, right? This cell here. And all the rest, all the other cells are exactly the same as in the logistic regression code template, or the classification code template, because indeed we use the same variable names, classifier, and then xtrain, xtest, everything is the same except this cell. So once again, we're going to re-implement this cell, but to do this we need to create a copy because this is in read-only mode. So right now we're going to create that copy on which we will be able to re-implement that cell. All right, so let's scroll down again to find that cell where we build and train the decision tree classification model. Now let's put it in the trash immediately because I don't want you to see, the name of the class, because indeed I want you to find it on your own. So there you go. Now is the time you press pause on this video to find the right class name that allows us to build the decision tree classification model. You will have to either look for it directly through an online search, or that other option is to look for it inside the Scikit-learn API. And this is exactly what we're going to do together. And all right, let's do this. So let's go to the Scikit-learn API to find the class that allows us to build a decision tree classification model. All right, so API. And by memory, let's suppose actually that I have no idea of the module or even the class that builds this decision tree classification model. So here I'm scrolling down, to observe the different modules. Maybe it is an Ensemble methods because, I know that random forest, we built, the random forest regressor in part 2. Random forest is an Ensemble method, but no, here we don't see the decision tree. So let's scroll back down again, which makes sense, right? Because the decision tree is just a single model. It is not an ensemble of models. All right, so manifold learning, metrics, no. It's really important that you get familiar with this API because the more you get familiar, the more expert you'll become and the better you'll juggle with all the machine learning tools, besides the one that I'm giving you in this course. All right, so here I'm scrolling down more. All right, preprocessing, random projection, semi-supervised learning, support vector machines, decision trees. There we go. Usually the module you're looking for in the Scikit-learn API will have the same name here as the model you want to build, right? And this is organized in alphabetical order. So that's why I wanted you to do this exercise. It's actually very easy to find what you want. All right, so decision trees. And now which one do we want to get among these? Well, that's of course the first one. That was the one we used in part 2 regression, but now we're doing classification. So we want the decision tree classifier class. All right, so now what do we have to do first? Well, let's do, what we have to do anyway, which is to import that class. And so I'm copying this, and then back in my copy, we're going to create a new code cell. We're going to paste that. And once again, we're going to start from Scikit-learn and then the tree module by Scikit-learn. And from that tree module, we're going to import the decision tree classifier. So that's the first step, right? You know it by heart now. And now the second step, I don't even have to tell you. It is, of course, to create our classifier object, which will be created as an instance of this decision tree classifier class, and which will represent nothing else than the decision tree classifier model. All right, so here we add some parentheses. And now the second question is, what do we have to input here as parameters, of this decision tree classifier class? So let's see. Let's go back to the documentation, the Scikit-learn API, and well, we will just change one, default value of the parameters, which is this one, criterion. So the default value of criterion is Gini, but with respect to what you learned in the theory with Kirill's intuition lecture, we're going to choose an entropy criterion. So the criterion is, of course, the function to measure the quality of a split, and that quality is measured by entropy.